Okay, you guys saw that last week I produced a non-spoiler review of Star Wars The Force Awakens. Now, this is going to be the spoiler review of Star Wars The Force Awakens. So, if you have not seen the movie, do not click on this video. Or if you're watching right now, click off now. You have been warned. So, we get into the story. There is an individual played by Max von Sydow at the beginning of the movie who gives a digital apparatus to Poe Dameron, who takes it and puts it into his droid BB-8, and then Kylo Ren and his First Order stormtroopers come down to Jakku. This happens on Jakku, by the way. And what happens is they essentially slaughter everyone except for Poe Dameron. They capture Poe Dameron. And let's see. And what happens is they take him to their ship. Meanwhile, a stormtrooper, FN-2187, is very hesitant to fire on innocent villagers. So he only stands there with his blaster. He doesn't actually fire at these villagers. So, and Kylo Ren, now one of the coolest moments in this movie is when Poe Dameron has taken a shot at Kylo Ren. Kylo Ren, with the Force, stops this laser blast in mid-air. I was like, whoa, when I saw that. And the audience was like, whoa. Oh, yeah. And he kept that blast, that laser blast, in the air for like 2 or 3 minutes while he was interrogating Poe Dameron. Then they take Poe onto the landing craft, which looked very much like the old Imperial shuttles from the original trilogy. And then, after all the villagers are slaughtered and everything, he lets that blast go, and it just goes and hits something. I didn't quite see what exactly it hit, but it was intended to hit Kylo Ren. So they go aboard the Star Destroyer, which is now a First Order Star Destroyer, and FN-2187. Now that number is very interesting because it was the number of Princess Leia's cell on the Death Star in the original Star Wars. But what happens is this character, Captain Phasma, who is a female female captain of the First Order stormtroopers, orders an inspection of FN-2187's weapon, and she tells him, "Put your helmet on." Well, FN-2187 is having a crisis of conscience. He doesn't want to do this anymore. And it shows us that the stormtroopers are not clones. These stormtroopers are not clones. They're regular people, just like FN-2187, who we later become more familiar with as Finn. This is Finn, played by John Boyega. Gwendolyn Christie portrays Captain Phasma. Adam Driver as Kylo Ren. And what happens is FN-2187, Finn, helps Poe Dameron escape. They escape in a 2-seater TIE fighter, these new generation TIE fighters. And Poe asks him his name. He says FN2187. I really don't have a name. And Poe says, well, now let's see, FN? What about Finn? So Poe actually gave Finn his name, which I thought was pretty great. And they actually go back to Jakku, but they're shot down by the First Order, who are chasing them. And what happens is Finn and Poe get separated. After the TIE fighter crashes, the TIE fighter gets sucked down into the planet. Now by this time, BB-8, actually another character named Rey, actually finds BB-8 because BB-8 has been captured by this junk dealer named Tino, and she frees BB-8. And she tells him, town is that way, but don't go this certain direction because there's sinking sand. That's what happens to the TIE fighter. They get sucked down by this like quicksand. And BB-8's like, no, I want to follow you. So BB-8 follows Rey. What happens is Finn was able to retrieve Poe's jacket. He's wearing Poe's jacket, and he comes across Rey. And at first, Rey thought that Finn was a thief because BB-8 said, that's Poe's jacket. It's like, that's not your jacket, that's Poe's jacket. And Rey is suspicious of Finn, but then Finn tells her, I was looking for the droid, BB-8. So what happens is the First Order attacks via TIE fighters, 2 TIE fighters, and they're bombing the village. Now before this, Rey was actually trying to earn some credits, or earn some, I guess they call them portions, like money almost. She was trying to sell stuff to this junk dealer. And then she has BB-8 with her, and the junk dealer says, is the droid for sale? And Rey says no. Rey had considered selling BB-8, but then she thought, no, I better not do that. So she doesn't sell BB-8. So what happens is the First Order attacks. Rey and Finn are able to escape. Now the funny thing is they're running towards one ship. And they see another ship off to the side. They say, no, not that piece of junk. And they're running towards this one ship. Ship gets blown up over the piece of junk that they are referring to is the Millennium Falcon. And there was a big cheer from the audience when the Millennium Falcon showed up. When they pan to the Millennium Falcon. So Rey and Finn, they go on, and BB-8, they board the Millennium Falcon. They take off. A little bit of a shaky takeoff because Rey, I don't think, is really used to flying a huge freighter like that. Now BB-8 had been stolen and was at that time in the current possession of a fellow named Unkar Plutt. And that was Shaun of the Dead star Simon Pegg, who was also in the Star Trek movies as Mr. Scott. The new Star Trek movies, the J.J. Abrams, the first 2 J.J. Abrams Star Trek movies. So they escape, and they're chased by TIE fighters through this graveyard of the giants, which is huge crashed Star Destroyers. I'm referring to the older model Star Destroyers. And eventually they escape, and Rey does this one maneuver where she kind of stands the Falcon up to where Finn can line up the bottom blaster guns and destroy this last TIE fighter, because the guns have been hit and they were jammed. They take off into space. The Falcon is breaking down. There's poisonous gas seeping through the ship. Then they get picked up by a tractor beam. They immediately think it's the First Order. And it's this huge freighter. and they're brought on board the freighter, and they hide down in one of the they don't hide in the smuggling compartments. They hide somewhere else. So who should come on board the ship but Han Solo and Chewbacca, Harrison Ford and Peter Mayhew, and the crowd, the fans were cheering when they came in the ship. Yeah, I mean it was great. The audience was cheering when they saw Han and Chewie. So what happens is they're on the ship, and one of the weaker scenes in this movie, and I have to agree with some of the other reviewers that have posted reviews of this particular scene, is where we see these creatures, which are obviously CGI, and they're like these huge octopus type things. They're called Rathars. But we see these two groups of pirates, which Han Solo owes money to. And apparently Han was doing jobs for these different organizations of pirates, space pirates. And he's trying to negotiate for his and Chewie's lives. Rey and Finn have gone to hide. BB-8 is hiding behind Han Solo and hiding alongside Chewbacca. And what happens is these creatures are released. They attack the pirates. They kill most of the pirates. Han and Chewbacca are trying to get away. Finn and Rey are trying to get away. Finn almost gets snagged by one of these creatures. But Rey rescues him at the last second, and then they all go to the Falcon. They get on board the Falcon. They take off. And then they go into hyperspace, and they're heading towards a planet where an old friend of Han's is, Maz Kanata, who is a 1,000-year-old little impish creature, very reminiscent of Yoda, And I can't remember the actress's name. Her name is Lupita something. She's from Africa. She voices and performs the motion capture for Maz Kanata. And there's this castle, which is almost like the creature cantina for the original Star Wars. There's all kinds of weird, aliens and things like that inside the castle. And they've got BB-8 with them. Chewbacca actually stayed behind to try and repair the Falcon. And Maz says, "Where's my boyfriend?" Apparently, she knows Chewbacca. And I had to question the wisdom of, there is a droid that's wanted by the First Order. Why take the droid into a public place like that castle, which is almost like a cantina? And what happens is Rey and Finn go in there. Now Finn is wanting to get away, and he wants to take Rey with him. He's still trying to get away from the First Order because he knows that they will most likely kill him if they get a hold of him, or they'll do really bad things to him because he defected. And the First Order is kind of like the Mafia. You don't leave the Mafia. You don't leave the mob. So there's a spy inside the castle who calls the First Order, says that we've spotted the droid, and I think it was before this, there was a really funny moment inside the Falcon where Rey and Finn are kind of arguing. Now Finn has told Rey that he's a member of the Resistance. That's the new Rebel Alliance. The new name for the Rebel Alliance is the Resistance. And BB-8's kind of looking back and forth to see which one he can trust. So Finn tells BB-8, "I'm not really with the Alliance. Can you keep my secret?" and Finn gives him a thumbs up, and BB-8 does this little thumbs up. I thought that was just great. That was just tremendous. For those who say BB-8 is the new Jar Jar Binks, they're wrong. No, this is a charming character. He's a cute little droid. I love BB-8. I thought BB-8 was great. And BB-8 was real, as I mentioned in my spoiler-free review, which is also on this channel. So the First Order is contacted. They come down. Kylo Ren is come down. I think before this was where we first see Supreme Commander Snoke. And he's this huge hologram. He's this huge creature, which you don't know at first is a hologram, but that's what it is, a hologram. And I'm not sure exactly how large Snoke is. But, because they never give you any indication. All you see is this huge hologram of him. I mean, he may be the size of Yoda. So they come down and they're out to recapture BB-8, but there's a nice little bonus because Finn is there, and this one riot trooper who is just badass. He has this device which is able to block lightsabers because Finn is using. What happens is Rey hears sounds like children screaming and crying down in the basement of this castle. She goes down there. She finds an old lightsaber. It's Luke Skywalker's and Anakin Skywalker's original lightsaber. Somehow it was retrieved from Cloud City after The Empire Strikes Back. If you remember, Luke had his hand chopped off by Vader, and I guess the lightsaber was presumably lost, but now it's been found. Rey touches it and she begins to have these visions. She has a vision of the hallway in Bespin on Cloud City. She hears Obi-Wan talking to her. She hears Yoda. And she's a little bit freaked out. We also see what appears to be the Knights of Ren. We see Kylo Ren stabbing someone with his lightsaber. And we see a little girl dropped off on a planet. There's a freighter flying away, a ship flying away. I think that, and that's going to play into a theory that a lot of reviewers have had about Rey's parentage, and I'll get into that. But Rey kind of gets freaked out by this vision, and Maz Kanata comes into the room and says, I'm not a Jedi, but I know the Force. And she could tell that Rey was strong with the Force. And she told Rey, take the lightsaber, take it. And Rey's like, I don't want to have anything to do with it. And Rey is freaked out. I mean, she was genuinely freaked out by these visions that she had. So she runs out. She goes running into the woods right before the First Order comes down and attacks. But she sees the ships, including this great shot, tremendous shot of the sunset with these TIE fighters coming out of the sunset. Oh, what a great shot that was. That was a tremendous shot. You've probably seen it in the trailers, but seeing it in the theater on the big screen, oh, amazing. Amazing shot, it really was. So the First Order comes down. Finn gets the lightsaber. He's using it to stab First Order stormtroopers. There's this one riot trooper who says, "Traitor!" And he's got this staff, this like a tonfar, which can deflect lightsabers. So actually, he gets the better of Finn. Finn's not really a polished fighter. We'll just put it that way. He's not that polished of a fighter. Now there was another scene I wanted to mention of Kylo Ren throwing a temper tantrum when he's told that the droid has the map. It's actually a map, part of a map showing the location of Luke Skywalker, the last known location of Luke Skywalker, because in the opening crawl it's established that Luke has vanished. So, anyway, there's this confrontation between Finn and this riot trooper. The riot trooper gets the better of him, and we see Han and Chewbacca using their blasters, and Chewie's using his bowcaster. But actually, I think Han got more use out of it than Chewie did, because Han used the bowcaster quite a bit, which was pretty humorous. But it was cool at the same time, though, to see Han using Chewie's bowcaster. And I had no idea that was such a powerful weapon, but man, Chewie did use it a couple of times in the original trilogy. But when you see it used in Force Awakens, it's like, whoa. I mean, it was really great. It was the tremendous weapon. I could see why Han liked using it. Han said, "I like this gun." And it was great. What happens, Rey is out in the woods, BB-8 follows her. Then BB-8 manages to get away. Kylo Ren follows her out there. She's trying to blast Kylo Ren with her blaster, which Han gave her. And Kylo Ren, of course, blocks the bolts with his lightsaber. And then he... Oh, I forgot to mention about Kylo Ren's temper tantrum. When he's told about the droid and the girl, there's a girl with him. He starts slicing up this computer console. I mean, he's using his lightsaber to slice it up and slash it up. And then he uses the Force to start force choking this one guy. And then he brings the guy up to him. He's got him face to face. He's got him around the throat. I mean, that was an amazing force power. So what happens is, Kylo captures Rey and takes her on board his ship. Now, before this, we have seen the destruction of several planets in the Hosnian Prime system by a weapon called the Star Killer Base, which is a huge ice planet. It's not Hoth, like in Empire Strikes Back, but it's a huge ice planet with this massive, massive weapon. And I know a lot of people are thinking, yes, that's Death Star. It's similar to the Death Star. And it is. It's similar to the Death Star. I agree. I mean, you would have thought the Empire / First Order would have learned by now that having these super weapons, there's going to be a weakness or two. And sure enough, we find out that there is a weakness to this. Now, after all this has occurred, all of a sudden, after the First Order leaves. Now, we have learned, and here's a spoiler. Here comes a spoiler. That Kylo Ren is actually Ben Solo, Han and Leia's son. So there's a landing craft that lands, and Leia comes out along with C-3PO. And C-3PO has a red arm. It's never explained how he got the red arm and why he had to have it. But he has a red arm. His left arm is red. And he looks at Han Solo and he says, "Oh, Han Solo." And of course it's Anthony Daniels, who has voiced or played C-3PO in every single Star Wars related project. And of course Leia is played by Carrie Fisher. Carrie Fisher is back. You know, this is a personal admission, personal confession. I had a huge crush on Carrie Fisher when I was a kid. And the recent controversy with some columnist saying she looked too old, people saying she looked too old. Well, no. Look, people age differently. People are going to age. Some people look better when they're older. Some people don't look better when they're older. It happens. We all age differently. She aged differently. To me, she's still just as beautiful as she was in 1977. Personally. And I tweeted to her on Twitter. I said, F the haters, Carrie. Don't worry about it. I'm behind you 100%. I'm standing behind you. You know, I told her, I told Carrie Fisher on Twitter, hey, I'm behind you. I'm behind you. And I am. I mean, for people to try and age shame or body shame somebody, I mean, that's just wrong. That's just wrong. And I'm the kind of person who always stand up for what's right. And, Carrie Fisher, she didn't deserve that kind of treatment. She really didn't. Like I say, we all age differently. And I loved her back then when I was a kid. And you know something? I love her even more now for that Twitter post she made. I thought it was great. I thought her Twitter post was terrific. But getting back to the movie, we see Leia. She embraces Chewie. She does not embrace Han. She doesn't kiss Han. Now, apparently they've been estranged. They have been estranged because of their son. I mean, they had feelings over their son and his turn to the dark side. Now, earlier in the movie, Han, Chewie, Finn, Rey, and BB-8 are on the Falcon. Now, Chewie had been zapped in the arm by one of the space pirates. And what happened was, BB-8 showed his portion of the map, and Han mentions it's a map to Luke Skywalker, and Rey's like, Luke Skywalker, I thought he was a myth. And Han says, yeah, I used to think it was all a myth too. Then he says, but the Jedi, the dark side, the Force, it's all true. They're all real. They're real. Remember, this is a guy who said in the original Star Wars, hokey religions and ancient weapons are no match for a good blaster at your side, kid. Remember, Han used to be the cynical and used to not used to not believe in the Force, if you remember. So for him to have this turnaround and be a little less cynical, even in his old age, well, I think it helped develop Han Solo's character. And I mean, Harrison Ford killed it. He absolutely killed it. He was tremendous. He was Han Solo in this movie. No question about it. He wasn't just taking a paycheck. He wasn't just doing it and phoning it in. He was Han Solo. He did tremendous. He was great. He felt like Han Solo. He was Han Solo. And the interaction between he and Chewie was great also. So what happens is they go back to the Rebels' new base, the Resistance base, I should say. And Finn spots Poe. Poe apparently survived. Well, what happened was Han, Chewie, and them were in trouble, and all of a sudden, a bunch of Resistance X-Wing fighters show up, and we see Poe. And Poe's okay. He apparently survived the TIE fighter crash on Jakku. So we got the Resistance X-Wings, these brand new X-Wings, new models of X-Wings. These are not old school models of X-Wing like they had in the original trilogy. These are new X-Wings, and they were pretty cool. So we got Poe leading this squadron of X-Wing fighters, including an old hand from Return of the Jedi. Nine Nun was one of the X-Wing pilots. He was the co-pilot of Lando Calrissian in Return of the Jedi. I said, hey, that's Nine Nun, the Celestian pilot. Yeah, it was great to see him. But I thought, is that really Nine Nun? And I looked it up online. Sure enough, yep, that's him. That was him. So essentially, the Alliance, or excuse me, the Resistance saved Han, Chewie, and Finn's bacon and BB-8. And Han tells Leia, "I saw him. I saw our son." He knew Kylo Ren was Ben. There's he and Leia's son. Now Leia is a general now, as I mentioned in my spoiler-free review. Leia is a general. And they kind of talk to each other, but they're a little bit standoffish from each other because they haven't seen each other in such a long time. Leia was a little bit warmer with Chewbacca than she was with Han. I mean, she greeted Chewie like he was an old friend, which he is. Chewie's an old friend. So they go back to the base. They start planning how they're going to take down this Star Killer base. In the meantime, you've got this General Hux, played by Domhnall Gleeson, giving almost a Nazi-like speech and almost a Nazi-like rally. He's saying, "Yeah, the First Order is gonna take over the universe. We're going to do this. We're going to destroy the Resistance." And you see all these First Order stormtroopers and everything. Really fascinating stuff. And a huge set piece on Star Killer Base. So, the Resistance is attempting to figure out how they're going to destroy this base. Now, Leia is talking to Finn because she knows that Finn has this information. By the way, by this time, Finn has admitted, no, he was not a member of the Resistance. Han called him Mr. Big Deal. That was great. Han called him Mr. Big Deal. Because Finn said he was a big deal in the Resistance, which was a lie. But he admitted that he wasn't. He had nothing to do with the Resistance. That he was a former stormtrooper. So, well, what had actually happened was, earlier in the movie, Poe was being interrogated by Kylo Ren, and Ren was able to get the information out of Poe by reading his mind that the information they were looking for was inside the droid BB-8. So anyway, Finn spots Poe coming out of his X-Wing. He runs over and they embrace like, "Hey, how you doing? I thought you were dead, man." And I mean, it was a great reunion. BB-8 went over there. BB-8 almost knocked Finn over trying to get to Poe. So everybody's reuniting and everything at the Rebel base, but then they're inside, and we see another old hand from Return of the Jedi, Admiral Akbar. Yes, as in it's a trap. Yes, as in that Admiral Akbar. He is in the new movie as well. It was great to see him. It was great to see he and Nine Noon. It was a nice callback to the original trilogy. And it was tremendous to see both of them. Nine Noon and Admiral Akbar. I had the old Kenner action figures of both of them. I mean, I thought they were great characters. Even if Admiral Akbar was kind of a... Admiral Akbar has kind of become a punchline because of the "it's a trap" thing. But it was great to see them. It was great to see both those characters. So anyway, they're trying to figure out how to blow it up. Now, they believe that Finn has some information, and he does, because he tells them there's a way to destroy the super weapon. And it has something to do with these ventilation things. That you have to fly in there and destroy these ventilation dealies. And really, Finn wants to go rescue Rey. That's what he wants to go do. and Chewie and Han just say, okay, yeah, we're going to take you in there. We're going to let you, you know, we'll take you there. And of course, the base has shields. And Leia says, how are you going to do that? And Han says, you won't like it. He tells that to Leia. So right before they're all getting ready to leave, Han and Leia sort of say goodbye to each other. Leia says, if you see our son, bring him home. And then they embrace. They don't kiss, but they embrace. And Leia kind of tells Han, you still drive me crazy. I mean, it was a great scene. And it really ties into something that happens a little bit later in the movie. So what happens is Han takes the Falcon into hyperspace and takes it out of hyperspace and somehow manages to get right beyond the shield that's protecting the Starkiller base planet. But they have to fly in low, so they start flying through these trees. And Chewie's like, Han says, no, I can't pull up, they'll see us. So Han wants to stay low. There's this great shot of these trees, and the Falcon just comes bursting out of these trees. And then it kind of bounces onto the snow. Han's trying to land the Falcon. It skids almost to the edge of a cliff, but doesn't go over. So Han, Chewie, and Finn are heading to go and rescue Rey. Now, in the meantime, Rey does not really need rescuing because she rescued herself, and this is how she did it. Originally, Ren was interrogating her, trying to get information from her about the plan of attack. Gosh, I can't remember what she was trying to get information about. What he was trying to get information about. He was trying to read her mind, and she was resisting. She was using the Force. She came to realize she had Force abilities. And she said, I think, she told Kylo Ren, I think you're worried because you're not as powerful as Darth Vader. Now, there was a scene earlier in the movie where we see Kylo Ren talking in his private chambers, and we don't know who he's talking to. He's saying, I feel the light. I feel the light starting to pull me back. He's asking this unseen entity, help me to maintain the dark side. Help me to see your ways. He says, grandfather, he says, nothing will stand in our way. I will finish what you started. And he's talking to the scarred and charred remains of Darth Vader's helmet. Because apparently he must not have known that Vader reformed and was redeemed at the end of Return of the Jedi. Or the Battle of Endor, as it's called. So he's trying. So that kind of makes Kylo Ren mad. So he walks out. He leaves a stormtrooper in charge of Rey. Rey starts trying to utilize the Jedi mind trick, and the stormtrooper she's using it on is 007 himself, Daniel Craig. Yes, Daniel Craig was the stormtrooper who was guarding Rey in The Force Awakens. So Rey is saying, "You will release these bonds, and then you will walk, and then you will leave the door open." And the stormtrooper comes in and says, "I will only tighten those bonds, scavenger scum." So she tries it a couple of more times, and then it works. He releases her. Then she says, "Oh, and you'll drop your gun on the way out." And he says, "No, I will drop my gun on the way out." So he does. It's kind of a funny moment in the movie. It really is. So Ray is trying to get through the base, trying to get to where she can try and get to a ship or something like that. Meanwhile, Han, Finn, and Chewie are trying to get to the base, and they're at a certain point. And Han says, "Okay, where are the best places to set charges or whatever?" And Ray and Finn says, "Well, I really don't know." And Han says, "What kind of job did you have when you were here?" And he said, "Sanitation." And Han says, "You were in the sanitation department?" And then Chewie goes, and Han turns to him and says, "Oh, you're cold." That was a great moment. The moments between Han and Chewie in this movie are great. And then when you throw Finn in there, I mean, it was tremendous. So eventually, Han, Chewie, and Finn get in the base. They come across, or they see Captain Phasma walking down the hallway. Chewie tackles her, pulls her into a room where they need to, where the shield controls are. They tell her to bring the shields down. Now, Captain Phasma is supposed to be this Boba Fett type character, like the new generation Boba Fett, but too quickly she acquiesces to their demands. She brings the shields down. That was a little bit disappointing. And then Han says, "Is there a garbage compactor around? Is there a garbage chute around here? Trash compactor?" So supposedly they put Captain Phasma in the garbage in the trash compactor. I have a feeling she probably did escape from there, though. So what happened is, after Ren was trying to interrogate Rey, he and General Hux go to this room where they see the hologram of Snoke, and Snoke wants Kylo Ren to bring Rey to him. So Kylo Ren goes back. Rey has already escaped. He gets mad. He flies off the handle. He's slicing up stuff with his lightsaber. And we see outside the interrogation room. And we see these two stormtroopers coming around the corner. And then when they see that there's stuff flying out of the room, they just like, "Oh," and they make a 180 and they turn right back around. It was great. That was another great scene. So Han, Finn, and Chewie eventually find Rey. Rey and Finn embrace. And they're all trying to get out of the base. They're trying to set the charges. Finn and Rey are together, by the way. Han and Chewie. They kind of split up. So Chewie's up on one level. Han's down on another. So Ren senses that Han Solo is there. And he goes down onto a level where Han is. But he doesn't know where he is. He doesn't sense him anywhere. So he starts walking across this bridge. And we see Han come out. And Han goes to the start of the bridge and yells out, "Ben!" And he's calling to his son. He doesn't call him Kylo Ren. He calls him by his name. He's like, "Ben!" And then Kylo Ren turns around and says, "Han Solo." Now, he's already said earlier in the movie that Han Solo meant nothing to him. His own father he said this about. So Han says, "Take off that mask. You don't need it." And Kylo Ren says, "What do you think you'll see if I do?" And Han says, "The face of my son." So he takes the mask off. It's this big metal mask. And you can tell it's metal because when he drops down on the bridge, it makes this boom, this loud clang sound when it lands on when he drops down the bridge. So Han goes out onto the bridge, which I didn't think was a very good idea. Bridge with no railing, by the way. What is it with the Empire and the First Order not building handrails for their bridges and stuff? Anyway, I mean, of course, what's happening is the Starkiller weapon has to drain power from the sun, and the X-wings are kind of fighting against time to make sure that they can destroy the weapon before it completely drains the sun. Because if it completely drains the sun, then it's ready to fire. And one other thing I thought I'd mention about the Starkiller base, it can destroy multiple planets, not just one. That's how massive this super laser is on the Starkiller base. So anyway, Han goes out there onto the base, onto the bridge, and Kylo Ren says, "I feel like I'm being torn apart." And he asks his father, "Will you help me?" And Han says, "I'll do anything." So Ren almost, it seems almost as if he's going to reform. He's going to give up being this Sith wannabe. He's beginning to hand over his lightsaber to Han. But then, I mean, another spoiler. Here comes another spoiler. Takes the lightsaber, ignites it, runs Han right through. I mean, right through the chest. And Chewie's watching this, and so are Rey and Finn. And Chewie's up on the upper level. He goes, "Roar!" No, I can't. I know that's a lousy Wookiee sound, but I mean that's essentially. I mean he was very upset by what he saw. And Ren kind of says into Han's ear, "Thank you." Now, that line put me to mind of an episode of The Walking Dead from this season. The episode where we thought Glenn was dead. And the guy who was up there on top of the dumpster with him says, "Thank you," before he shoots himself in the head. And then they both fall into the midst of these walkers. That's what that put me to mind of when Ren said, "Thank you." And then Han puts his right hand on his son's cheek. And then he falls. Oh, that was tough to see. That was tough to watch. It was. I mean, it was really tough to see. But, Harrison Ford had been lobbying for Han Solo to be killed off ever since Return of the Jedi. In Return of the Jedi, he wanted to be killed off. He wanted Han to be killed off. But Lucas decided against it. So Harrison Ford got what he wanted. He had Han Solo killed off. I mean, I don't have to like it, but this is the way it had to be. And it was the only way it could be. I mean, I thought it was a great way for Han to go out. Still showing that he cared, showing that he had the heart of gold, even as the cynical smuggler and spice smuggler and all that. He cared about something. He cared about Leia. He cared about his son. Cared about Luke. And I mean, I thought it was a very noble death. And Chewie just goes bananas, goes crazy. And he takes his bowcaster, shoots Kylo Ren. Now, it doesn't kill Kylo Ren, but it does some pretty good damage. So, and Chewbacca's going through and shooting stormtroopers and all that. And they've already set all the charges, so he runs to a certain point, clicks the detonator, charges start going off. And, it was heartbreaking to hear Chewbacca, the way he reacted to Han getting run through, but with the lightsaber. So Finn and Rey are up on an upper level. They run out into the forest. We don't see Chewie again until a little bit later on. We'll see him later on in the movie. We see the X-wings going in, destroying the ventilation shafts and everything. They even go down a trench, which is, I know, similar to the original Star Wars. A little bit similar to Return of the Jedi. But anyway, we see Finn and Rey out in the forest. Then Kylo Ren follows them. And he's got his cross-guard lightsaber, which you can see on the poster here. And he takes Rey and uses the Force to drive Rey into a tree and knock her out, and she falls to the ground. And he says to Finn, "Traitor!" I mean, and what happens is there's kind of you might say, a one-sided lightsaber fight, because Finn is not adept with a lightsaber. He's not adept in the ways of the Force, so he's defeated pretty handily by Kylo Ren. He gets a few good shots in, but just not very. He's not very adept with a lightsaber. And we see Kylo Ren hitting himself in the chest, and we see blood coming out from where Chewie shot him with the bowcaster. Apparently, he was wearing some kind of a metal plate up underneath his cloak, and that's what kind of didn't really. It kind of saved his life. Because a bowcaster blast can do a lot of damage. It can kill, it can blow you up. So, I mean, he was lucky to have survived that direct bowcaster blast. So what happens is, he had knocked the lightsaber away from Finn. It goes flying off, lands in the snow, and then he slices Finn in the back. But it doesn't kill him, it just knocks him unconscious. Finn's not dead. Because they've already confirmed that John Boyega is going to be back for Episode 8. So what happens is, Kylo Ren is trying to retrieve the lightsaber. Trying to use the Force to draw the lightsaber to him. And we see the lightsaber starting to move, starting to vibrate a little bit in the snow. And then it goes flying. It goes flying past Kylo Ren. And Rey catches it. Rey is adept with the Force. So there's a lightsaber duel between Rey and Kylo Ren. And they're fairly evenly matched, even though Ren is getting the most of the confrontation. He seems to be winning the most of the confrontation. And then they get to the edge of this precipice, and he tells Rey, "I can teach you. I can train you. I can teach you the ways of the Force." And she says, "The Force," and she closes her eyes and she begins to concentrate, and she's holding the lightsaber, and then she just absolutely she realizes she has the Force, so she starts fighting back. I mean, she is fighting like she's never fought before. She manages to knock the lightsaber away from Ren, and she wounds him. Doesn't kill him, but she wounds him. And we see General Hux going once again to the hologram of Snoke. Snoke says, escape the planet and bring Kylo Ren to me, and we must complete his training. So, obviously, Kylo Ren and Hux and probably Captain Phasma survived and left the planet before it got blown up. So eventually, the Resistance pilots blow up the planet. We see the Falcon. Oh wait. Now, Rey is attending to Finn. Then we see this light shine on Rey and Finn. It's the Millennium Falcon. Chewie's in the Falcon. And Chewie comes out, gets Finn, takes him on board the Falcon, and they fly off. They fly back to the Rebel base. The Resistance base. And we see that Poe has survived and several other X-Wing pilots, including Nien Nunb. Several of them have survived. They go back to the Rebel base. We see the Falcon land. We see Finn is brought out. He's being taken to emergency to sick bay. And Rey and Chewie come off the Falcon, and Leia is there, and she embraces Rey. Now, she had never met Rey, but she embraces her. And you might wonder, well, she's never met this woman. Why is she embracing her? Well, I think it's because of something that happens at the end of the movie. I think the speculation is. I think it's very good speculation that Rey is Luke Skywalker's daughter. That's no spoiler, by the way. And recently, the new Star Wars Disney Infinity game seemed to confirm that Rey has parentage from the Force of Luke Skywalker. So, what happens is R2-D2 has woken up. He had been dormant. BB-8 had uncovered R2 and was trying to, nudge him to wake up. And R2 wouldn't wake up. Eventually, R2 wakes up. He has actually... Remember I mentioned that BB-8 only had part of a map showing where Luke Skywalker was. R2-D2 had the rest. R2-D2 flashes it, to where up on the display screen, and then BB-8 flashes his part of it and puts the entire map together. So Rey, Chewie, and R2 take off from the Falcon. Leia tells Rey, "May the Force be with you," before they leave. Rey is sitting in Han's place as the co-pilot. They fly to this planet where Luke is. Chewie and R2 stay with the ship, stay with the Falcon, while Rey goes up this mountain, up these steps. And she gets to the top of the mountain. We see this cloaked figure standing with his back to Rey. He turns around, and it's Mark Hamill as Luke Skywalker, looking very much like Obi-Wan Kenobi. Has a full beard and everything. Pulls his hood off. He's got this long dark hair, tinged with a little bit of gray. He's looking at Rey. Rey is offering the lightsaber to him. All he does, he just stands there and looks at Rey, almost as if he knows her, almost as if he recognizes her. We see this for about maybe a minute and a half. And there's this great helicopter shot which goes around Rey and Luke standing on top of this mountain. And the movie ends. Directed by J.J. Abrams. It was a really great way to end the movie. I did mention a few things that kind of bothered me about the movie. but they were really small nitpicks, and I still maintain it was a perfect 10. I still love the movie. Now, as to Snoke, Supreme Commander Snoke, there is a possibility, and this has been theorized, that he may be Darth Plagueis. Now, for all that everybody has said about the prequels, and believe me, and I would urge people to seek out Mr. Plinkett's reviews of the prequels. They are hilarious, but I think they're also spot on. And that's on YouTube. That's right here on YouTube, by the way. But in the prequels, in Revenge of the Sith, there's a scene where Palpatine is at an opera and Anakin comes in to sit with him. And they're talking, and Palpatine says, "Have you ever heard the tale of Darth Plagueis the Wise?" And of course, Anakin's like, "Well, no, I never heard that." So, what happens is, Palpatine begins telling this tale of this Sith Lord who apparently had the power to control life and death. He could bring people back from the dead. Or he could keep them from dying. And he had this great power until one day he finally somehow lost it. And his apprentice killed him. Now, a lot of people have said, well, his apprentice was the guy sitting right there, was Palpatine. And that may be true. And, Palpatine talked about him losing his power, referred to Darth Plagueis losing his power. But we only heard that he was killed by his apprentice, and it was supposed to be a tall tale anyway. And it's been speculated that Snoke is Darth Plagueis. And I suppose we'll find out more about that as the sequel trilogy rolls along. That means in episodes 8 and 9, I think we're going to find out more. We're going to find out more about Rey, about Finn, Rey's possible relationship with Luke Skywalker, more about Kylo Ren / Ben Solo. Plus, this year, at the end of this year, 2016, there's going to be a movie called Star Wars Rogue One, which is set between Revenge of the Sith and Star Wars, the original Star Wars. And it's a group of rebels. And I think this may explain how the rebels got the plans to the Death Star. And I think Forrest Whitaker is going to be in that movie. And it looks like, I haven't seen, there haven't been any trailers released yet, but should be interesting. And then episode 8 will be coming out in May of 2017. Next year. So we're talking the 40th anniversary of Star Wars. Which is next year. But it's going to be intriguing for sure. And guys, if you like this video, subscribe, give it a thumbs up, put your comments down below. Hopefully, if you have watched this video, because this spoiler is full of spoilers, you did see the movie. If you didn't, I warned you. I warned you this is going to be full of spoilers. In fact, the title says spoilers. So if you spoil the movie for yourself and you haven't seen it, it's your own fault. But anyway, thanks for tuning in, guys. I had a ball doing this, and I'll probably talk a lot more about Star Wars. I mean, because, as I said, the new one, The Force Awakens, felt like Star Wars. It felt like a Star Wars movie. Unlike the prequels. By the way, you can now pre-order a digital copy of The Force Awakens for when it is released. There's a new kind of it's very reminiscent of the old early bird kit that Kenner produced back in late 1977 when Kenner didn't have any action figures for the kids for Christmas. So they produced what was essentially some pretty pictures from the movie and a promise that you would get 4 figures. You would get 4 figures, which were Princess Leia, Luke Skywalker, R2-D2, and Chewbacca. Anyway, the item I'm talking about it's a digital pre-order limited edition kit. It's essentially a cardboard envelope, has 3 mini Star Wars The Force Awakens posters in it, and a code, and a website you go to, you enter the code, and you'll immediately be eligible to receive a digital copy of the Force Awakens when it's released digitally. And you can watch it like on Amazon or Disney Films Anywhere. There's several different, I think Vudu, I think you can see it on Vudu as well. So, I think it's a great idea. And I bought one of those kits, and I have reserved a digital copy of the movie for myself. So, anyway, thanks guys for watching. Take care. Happy New Year, and may the Force be with you.